Welcome to the intersection. 2 years ago, right at this moment, I was out trying to find Dominican food for my wife, who was about to go into labor with our 2-year-old's birthday tomorrow. That came to mind. I'm so glad I'm home. Thank you to the people of Montreal and in Canada for welcoming our family. We were there for the Father's Day, overlapping Father's Day weekend. I hadn't quite realized that Canada has the exact same Father's Day. Makes a lot of sense. I'm glad I was there, and thank you for that hospitality. And, it was fun to get sort of recognized by people in Canada, elbows up, as they say, but we're back and so much to talk about here at the intersection. Thank you for supporting what we do and how we do it independently, without blowing smoke or sunshine, unplugged because of you. We are live. If you ever doubted that we're live, ask a question in comments tonight. Somebody on my team will grab it, and hopefully you'll be one of the people that I answer during the show. What a great show I've got tonight, including a special guest at about the half-hour mark. I'll bring it in, Lee Gallant of the American Civil Liberties Union, who's going to brief the audience about a great development. If Trump and criminal contempt were a clock, we're getting awful close to midnight, as the entirety of the appellate panel for the D.C. federal court, all 11 judges voted, and they want to hear whether Judge Boasberg should be able to do a criminal contempt proceeding, evidentiary hearing, and fact-finding investigation about what happened a year ago, April, when over 100 men in the middle of the night, without due process or habeas corpus rights, were sent to El Salvador. Here's the important part, over the judge's orders. He ordered the planes grounded, he ordered the planes turned around, and then started the great odyssey, not just for the men, but for Judge Boasberg and for the rule of law, as it went up and down, bouncing around like a yo-yo, up and down to appeal, and all the whole time, a very steady like a locomotive. He's like the Johnny Cash of the ACLU, Lee Gallant, holding on, staying focused. Got a great result today, which we'll cover with him, as I said, in a little bit. Election night in America, they're important. They're bellwethers. They're canaries in the coal mine. They signal to Donald Trump of his lack of popularity, except in the reddest of red states. And even there, sometimes things go awry for him. We've got it in 3 different states. We'll keep an eye on the results. South Carolina closed a few minutes ago. New York's about to close soon. And we'll give you what's happening there, primarily in primaries, but also for the governorship and things like that. I want to tie together a couple of what used to be very respected monuments and the people's property, like the Kennedy Center and the reflecting pool. And bad things are happening at both. And we'll talk about what judges are doing about it, and the lies that it's not just algae that's spewing into the reflecting pool. The lies of the Trump administration, and Donald Trump in particular, about what is causing the algae bloom that everybody, including me, who's not a biologist, who knows very little about biosynthesis, told him when he did this, that there were major leaks, pump out problems, water issues, and algae that they've been trying to fight at the reflecting pool since Barack Obama. And that just using some sort of pool sealant, tidy bowl blue, and just seal over it is not going to do it. It reminds me of, I lived in a home that had, we were living in New Jersey. We rented this home and we moved out of the city for a bit. That was right on a river, and it had this long dock and then this walkway to the dock in the back. And the dock was like falling apart. I mean, it was bad. And the person that I was renting from refused to structurally repair it. It was really dangerous. We used it, but we took our life in our own hands. And one day she sent out like a 16-year-old with a bucket of paint. It was like Tom Sawyer painting, the whitewashing the fence from the old book. And we were watching them paint this falling apart, structurally unsafe structure. And my next door neighbor yelled out the window to me and said, "That must be structural paint. That must be paint that will heal the structure. Otherwise, why are you doing it?" Same thing here. painting the pool while it's got a giant leak and algae problem, pump out problem, is not going to do it. So we're going to talk about the pool, Kennedy Center, tear down that tarp, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Trump, and what judges are doing about that. And then I'm going to have a whole segment, and it will dovetail with Legal Alert ACLU joining me, about former judges. Former judges. Michael Ludig, J. Michael Ludig, who's going to be with me tomorrow for a special interview on Legal AF, and was with me last week for a special interview on Legal AF, former Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals judge, who by all rights should be the Chief Justice of the United States. He was that close to getting the job. Republican, Federalist, Constitutionalist, no longer, has said out loud, I will only vote Democrat up and down the ticket because my party has lost its way and has abused the rule of law. More importantly, he has yoked together 200 state and federal judges. And he says, I'm going to play a clip a little bit later, he says that it's only the former federal judges at this moment in time who can rise above the partisan din and save our democracy and rule of law. And I got some great examples for you in the last week, and a new one that just happened as I came on the air with another 101 judges against Todd Blanche. And the reason this is all coming to a head is that all the public interest groups and the senators, right on time, have figured out, looking at their clock and the calendar, that we're counting down to Todd Blanche's confirmation hearing on the 15th of July. And where will that be televised? Of course, on Legal AF YouTube channel. And in advance, groups are doing things, filing bar complaints. And every little data point that you and I are watching, that I'll cover on many of tonight, prosecutorial misconduct and abuse that's rampant in Chicago under Todd Blanche, dismissal of indictments by the Department of Justice itself by recognizing prosecutorial misconduct, unheard of under Todd Blanche, indictments being dismissed not just by the Department of Justice, but at the request or at the demand of judges for vindictive prosecution under Todd Blanche, the Epstein scandal, and the refusal to release documents. We got new filings related to that, and under Todd Blanche. See the theme here? Judges, like in Miami, considering findings of fraud on the court perpetrated by Todd Blanche and his boss, Donald Trump, and the Treasury Department about the slush fund. Judges in Chicago thinking about appointing special counsel and special prosecutors to investigate Todd Blanche. Senators looking into whether Todd Blanche and Emil Bovee, now on the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, but then his right-hand person, can, listen to this, conspired with judges on the D.C. Federal Appellate Court, two in particular, to block an attempt to find contempt against the Trump administration involving federal judges. This is all coming to a head. We're going to cover former judges, and they're not only getting the attention of current judges, but taking them by the black robes and shaking them and getting them to do things in defense of our democracy. We got the NAACP, who has filed a suit in Mississippi against Elon Musk and his AI company about data centers. That is a winning strategy, I believe, for the Democrats, to go after the data center and the destruction of the environment and local communities. They're unregulated under Donald Trump. They don't have to get clean air and clean water permits, even though they're belching contaminants into the air and the water. And then when they're challenged, they claim national security. We need Musk data center because we use his grok to indiscriminately bomb civilian sites in Iran. We'll talk more about that NAACP suit in Mississippi that took a bizarre turn where we have a confession by the government that they used grok to bomb civilian targets effectively, including an all-girls school and 157 people that lost their life, including 100 little girls. Then we got some new injunctions that have just come out. And just for sake of clarity, I'm not hiding Trump's wins. There's been a couple. a couple of the Supreme Court, no shit. Today, 3 new decisions came out, not the big ones, but other ones. 6-3, 6-3, 6-3, MAGA 6, taking away a person's immigration rights, giving rights to the tech companies. It's just what you think. This narrow representation of rights in America by the 6. And then, but you got mainly losses. The biggest one may be today, something I'll do a video on tomorrow, which is Judge Suknanen in D.C., a Biden appointee, in about a 70-page opinion, ruled that the voter data, the Social Security state voter list that Trump is creating using Social Security and citizenship lists, which are totally inaccurate, to try to take away people's right to vote, it's unconstitutional and illegal, and blocked it. And it's part of the grand database that Musk wanted, right? If we left Elon Musk to run the government, shudder the thought, he would have combined a giant database, with AI agents and lobsters running all around, putting everything together from all the different separated by purpose databases of your private and confidential information and mine, protected by the Privacy Act. Put them all together in one giant searchable database. What could go wrong with hackers and trolls and foreign agents in Russia and China and North Korea and India and even alleged allies like Israel? That's their wet dream. They just have to crack one giant database and they get it all? Jackpot? How stupid do you have to be? That's a rhetorical question. So we're going to cover that as well here on The Intersection. And I think the nice thing about this particular podcast that I do, where I get to ride solo, is I get to answer questions from the audience. And I think we might, I don't know, I see things up already. Let me answer a few just to show you that we're live. Paul Schwartz, Michael, do you think Democrats need to quell these damn lies when it comes to reflecting pool? Yeah, let me focus on the reflecting pool for a minute. Trump cannot bring himself to admit that he fucked up the pool. I mean, can I just put it that way? The pool, when you paint it dark blue and you heat it up, I barely got through high school chemistry. However, I do know that a dark bottom pool in the middle of the sweltering summer that is Washington in the summer, for those that haven't visited, it is like a hot, wet blanket just covers the entire city for the duration. Yeah. And it's been that way since our founding father, since who was it? James Madison, John Adams first occupied the White House. It hasn't changed. It is a hot, stinking mess. And with that sun beating down on that pool with a dark bottom, without proper filtration and a pumping system, of course it was going to have more algae, not less, more green and brown, less clear. I mean, it's like it's the equivalent of coming home one day and there being a giant hole in your roof. And the first thing you decide to do is paint the interior of the house. That'll do it. You got to fix the basement and the roof before he can start doing remodeling and painting, not to Donald Trump. So he can't admit that he fucked it up, that draining the... And that's why Todd Blanche shouldn't be Attorney General. What did I miss? Well, for those that wondered whether this was live television, this is live television, everybody. I don't know what happened. We literally don't know what happened. Trump, good as any. So let's go back to the pool. It's a lie. It's in the documents about the pool and the construction. There are 2 large gashes, 171 inches in length, that has nothing to do with the liner. It has to do with the joints. They don't know why the gashes are there, but it's not the reason that the liner is peeling off. It's not the reason that there's algae. It's just whether it was done by a contractor or is done by accident. There's no sabotage. No chemicals were poured into the pool. See, Trump's addled brain, somebody told him that they burned 8647 into the grass. I know that my producers are watching. I'm getting recording error again. Do I have an unstable feed? Who knows? I'm going to send you a picture so you know what's happening. You know this is live and we have this many problems. But we're gonna muddle through it together. Our audience is solid. We appreciate you. I'm going to keep going until somebody tells me stop. So, in any event, no chemicals were poured in. They were used to burn 8647 on the grass. They didn't end up in the pool. The Olympic guy that tried to pull a piece as a souvenir of the liner floating, he didn't sabotage the pool. Okay? There is no sabotage of the pool. You needed to rebuild the filtration system. You know what the sad part is? He knows how to do this. You know, when I lived in New York 30 years ago, he took over a broken ice skating rink that also had filtration and ice making issues called Woolman Rink right near the Plaza Hotel in the center of Central Park and fixed it. Say what you want about Trump, but lots of kids had ice skating after that. So he knows how to effing do it. He's just so impaired, you know, with his Bob the Builder bullshit that he'd rather blame phantom vandals pouring chemicals into his reflecting pool than admit defeat. Same thing with the tarp. Wait till you see the tarp. And I love the ingenuity around the tarp. So first of all, you've got a new filing in the tarp case over the Kennedy Center name because he was supposed to restore the Kennedy Center name, not cover it with a tarp so you can't see it, and not make the tarp a semi-permanent structure with entrances and exits, and then claim it's part of the remediation of the repairs. We're fixing the soffits. I don't know if you know where soffits are, but they're 20 feet above the tarp. That can't possibly be it. No, it's to save his embarrassment to have the name down. If my name can't be up, nobody's name can be seen. Yeah, but that violates Judge Cooper's 96-page order. So, you know, to paraphrase Ronald Reagan, Mr. Gorbachev, tear that wall down, tear the tarp down. They're going to file a motion for contempt any day now with Judge Cooper that they are in contempt of court, the Board of Trustees, who are all Donald Trump's buddies and wives of the buddies on the Kennedy Center for keeping that tarp up, and that they lied about the need for the tarp and the need to delay putting up the tarp to the federal judge's face. But I love ingenuity. When you have a tarp, stationary structure, kind of monochromatic, look like a pretty good backdrop for a video to be projected, like the Epstein video being projected on the entrances of the tarp. Now, this is the same video, I assure you, I'm pretty sure, that they showed overseas when Donald Trump was abroad. And I just love, and then nobody stopped it, which I also love. And that's just, you got to have a sense of humor in this business, right? If I saw that, I'm surprised Midas didn't do it. They didn't do it, but I'm surprised Midas didn't do it, you know, and have cameras about it. But tear the tarp down. It's ridiculous. You know, everything you touch turns to shit. It's like the reverse Midas touch. And so we got that going for us. And then I want to do, since we did the Kennedy Center and the pools, before I get to the former federal judges, let me just touch briefly while we wait for Lee for the ACLU to arrive. Let me just make sure with my team that I've got good. I have good. You guys hear me okay? Everything good here? Are we good? What'd you think about the graphics? We did new graphics tonight on the thumb. People like that graphic? Kind of my signature green now that we're using, and then Michael Popok and all of that. Tell me what you think. Put that in chat. All right, we got a good crowd. We got 4,000 here. Put up with all that technology, you know, brouhaha. Let's see what other questions we have before I talk about. All right, that's all good. Oh, I lost my questions. So my team, I need my questions. Got to put it back. I lost the chat. Did I lose the chat? Ah, there it is. Department of Justice has filed a notice of appeal in Kilmer Abrego's dismissal. Thoughts? Yeah, they're going to lose. I think they're going to lose. I think the burden was shifted to the government to show that they did not vindictively prosecute Kilmer Abrego Garcia. Todd Blanche needed to testify. He refused to testify. And that was it. They didn't carry their burden. I got to interview the lawyers from the Hecker Fink firm who represented Kilmer in that one. What masterful lawyering. Former assistant U.S. attorneys kicking the ass of Trump. And no, I don't, to answer the question of, I don't know who asked the question because then nobody gave me the name, but no, to answer your question, no, it's not a good look going into the confirmation hearing. This is one of many, many things that are going to be questioned by people like Sheldon Whitehouse. In fact, let me do it now. My interview with Senator Whitehouse, the leading Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee, because I interviewed him about what's going to happen on July 15th, and he was cataloging all the things that his team is working on to cross-examine Todd Blanche with. And one in particular, I had never heard, that the Senate Democrats are investigating whether Todd Blanche, in a conspiracy, there's no other word for it, with Emil Bovee, then his used to be his law partner, Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer. Then he ran effectively the day-to-day operations of the Department of Justice while Pam Bondi had not yet been confirmed and has now been, they think, safely ensconced at the Third Circuit Court of Appeals as a judge. He's the guy that gave that order, according to Erez Ruveni, who worked for the Department of Justice, to tell federal judges to go F off, rather than comply with their orders, like Jeb Boasberg's order. We're going to talk about that with Legal Alert from the ACLU in a minute. But the block of Judge Boasberg's April order, finding probable cause to start criminal contempt proceedings against the Trump administration and Kristi Noem, Homeland Security, and the rest. The fact that it was blocked by two Trumpers, Katsas and Rayo. Judge Rayo is definitely trying. Naomi Rayo definitely is trying out for the United States Supreme Court. Even Sheldon Whitehouse agreed with me, Senator Whitehouse. It's like, this is a big tryout. Was there a conspiracy between Rayo, Katsas, and Todd Blanche to block Boasberg to give time while the confirmation hearing was going on with Emil Bovee? In fact, if we've got the clip, my producer, Salty, let's play the clip of my interview with Sheldon Whitehouse. This has not been covered anywhere else.
Looked enough like contempt to Judge Boasberg that he scheduled a contempt hearing to inquire. Two Trump judges on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals stayed that contempt hearing. And they used something called administrative stay, which, as you know, is usually a matter of days, weeks at the outside, for 4 months.
I was going to say it was months.
For 4 months, they stayed the contempt hearing about Emil Bovee's conduct, during which time the department put Emil Bovee through the Senate Judiciary Committee with a contempt inquiry pending and stuffed him onto the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. Now, if it should turn out that there were communications between the MAGA Department of Justice people like Blanche and the Trump judges who stopped the Boasberg contempt hearing, and this thing was a setup to create that window so that they could shove Bovee through and the whole thing was coordinated. I mean, all of the clues point to that. We haven't got it pinned down yet, but Blanche under oath will be in an interesting position to explain what he knows about what the contacts were with Judges Rayo and Katsas, right, the two judges who stayed it.
Did you guys hear that? A sitting senator, is telling you that they're going to investigate whether two judges on the appellate court, in coordination with Todd Blanche and Emil Bovee, blocked a federal judge's order, chief judge, order to stop a federal judge from investigating criminal contempt in his courtroom. I can't even believe my mouth is forming that sentence. And that is a good way for us to segue to something. When we come back from our first break, I'm going to have Legal Alert of the ACLU talking about that very case that Senator Whitehouse is so concerned about, and a new development that happened today with an en banc ruling. We're going to do a little teach out, a little brown bag dinner over what a en banc is all about, why it's so important, and why Lee and the ACLU have been pushing so hard on behalf of their more than 100 plaintiffs, these lost men, these people who were sent in the middle of the night over court order to the torture prison of El Salvador, and then traded with Venezuela, which I thought we were at war with at one point, but yet we're doing a trade before the war. Whole thing's crazy, but you're really gonna enjoy, I think, it from the ACLU's perspective. So many different ways to support what we do on the intersection. Let's go over them. They're all free, frankly. Downloads. It sounds so mundane and vanilla. I need more downloads. Go over to the wherever you get your audio. This is audio. It's a podcast, so you can pick it up on audio as well. And we need more audio downloads. That's sort of the legitimacy. So even if you're a YouTuber like me, just slide over for a second with your thumb and download the audio version. You can leave a 5-star review too. That helps. For the intersection. That's one. Two, this sits on top of an infrastructure that we call Legal AF. I curate, I'm the executive producer, if you will, executive managing director. I give myself all sorts of titles over on the Legal AF YouTube channel. And we're rapidly growing, right? We're up to 1.14 million subscribers. We could use more. We need more. We need you over there for sure. And then we got Legal AF, the Substack, comes in all different sizes. And we're usually in the top 10 of all rising U.S. news Substacks. I do a live report every day. I did one today, sometimes with a guest, sometimes without. 8 or 10 other pieces of content, including all the filings in court and orders and opinions of the Supreme Court that we talk about every day on Legal AF Substack. And then we've got sponsors, because people want to get to know our audience. They know what our point of view is here. They support independent media and commentary. They support First Amendment speech, my right to speak and your right to hear me speak and to be heard. And so we're going to take a quick break for our sponsors. When we get back, we're going to have Legal Alert of the American Civil Liberties Union. Let's take a break. You've got weight loss goals, but hitting them is another story. Enter Weight Loss by Hims. It's designed to support you in losing the weight and keeping it off, and Hims now offers access to an affordable range of FDA-approved GLP-1 medications, including the Wegovy pill and the Wegovy pen. With Wegovy at Hims, lose up to 20% or more of your body weight when combined with diet and exercise. It helps you regulate your appetite and eat less, so success is within reach. Plus, Wegovy is the first ever GLP-1 pill for weight loss, so there are no needles needed. Through Hims, everything happens online. You'll connect with a licensed provider who will determine if treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your medication is delivered right to your door. No insurance necessary, and it doesn't stop there. Hims makes hitting your goals seamless by offering access to 24/7 messaging with your care team and an in-app lifestyle and nutrition support, like recipes, meal plans, fitness videos, sleep content, and more. Ready to reach your goals? Visit hims.com/truth to get a personalized, affordable plan that gets you. That's HIMS.com/truth. Hims.com/truth. Weight Loss by Hims is not available in all 50 states. Wegovy is the registered trademark of Novo Nordisk AS. To get started and learn more, including important safety information, Wegovy clinical study information, and restrictions, visit hims.com. Anyone who has a cat knows that they are basically tiny food critics. Chanel certainly is. If she's not impressed, everybody in the house knows it. So when I found something she genuinely loves, and that's actually good for her, I paid attention. That's why I'm a fan of Smalls. Smalls fresh cat food is protein-packed recipes made with preservative-free, 100% human-grade ingredients you'd find in your fridge, and it's delivered right to your door. It's because Smalls' fresh, gently cooked food is made without preservatives. More of the nutrients in Smalls food are digestible, so less junk comes out the other end. That means less stinky poops. And after switching to Smalls, 88% of cat owners reported overall health improvements. So stop serving your little carnivore a bowl of processed shortcuts for a limited time, because you are listeners of The Intersection with Michael Popok. Get 60% off your first order, plus free shipping and free treats for life when you head to smalls.com/intersection. That's 60% off your first order, plus free shipping and free treats for life when you head to smalls.com/intersection. And we are back, and thank you to our sponsors here on the Midas Touch Network and on the Intersection podcast. So, look, one of the things I said I was going to frame today's episode around is the revenge of former federal judges, I guess. It's like there's no one more. They put the fed up in federal judges, or federal judges put the fed up in being fed up, and they are fighting back. You got people like J. Michael Luttig, who has yoked together 200 state and federal judges, and they pick their moments, but they file their motions and they file their amicus briefs, and they are getting attention. I know it because in the last week, you've got 35 federal judges led by Judge Luttig getting a favorable response to a motion they filed to reopen and to have the judge investigate and do fact-finding around whether there was fraud on the court by the Trump administration and the Department of Justice and Todd Blanche and the Treasury Department about the creation of the weaponization fund. And then you've got another group of 174 federal judges that filed also a brief, a friend of the court brief, with the DC Federal Appellate Court, asking them to do an en banc review, meaning all 11 judges, active judges of that appellate court, to overrule, toss the ruling by the 3-judge panel, 2-1, 2 Trump-appointed judges and the one other person, Judge Childs, and start over again and take a fresh look and with a clean slate and come up with a new ruling. And this case has been bouncing around since, a year ago, April. And every time, and then there's like all these procedural issues. And every time something goes up, like it's up, it's down, it's the old panel is back. They blocked it again. And all I know is I did the reporting. The judge, and this is what I believe. The district court judge, Chief Judge Boasberg, believes there's probable cause to investigate whether criminal contempt was committed by the Department of Justice / Homeland Security. That's what I know, because that's what he ruled. And then the question is whether a judge has the inherent authority to do that, even if later his decisions have been overturned by, let's say, a Supreme Court. But at the time, there's an opinion, and it's not being complied with. And what can you do about it if you're a federal judge? That's the question that's now up for grabs. So we're going to bring in Lee Gallant of the American Civil Liberties Union. Hi, Lee.
Hey, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for being. You must have been happy today.
Yeah, we are very pleased that the full court is going to take a look at this. We have been fighting this now for over a year, as has Chief Judge Boasberg. We think the government's actions that night back in March 2025 in deliberately what we think was a clear, deliberate intention to violate his order was really a remarkable move by the United States. And we're glad the full court is going to now take a look at this.
Why don't you remind everybody, because, we've done, of course, our updated briefing here. And for those that don't already know, the American Civil Liberties Union, we collaborate with them over on the Legal AF YouTube channel. They've got their own playlist. I just interviewed one of your colleagues today about a Supreme Court decision. And Lee's been on with us before about this particular case. But why don't you, because it'll be more potent coming from you, talk about your 100+ clients, what happened to them, and what that judge ruled, at 9:37, whatever it was, to ground those planes and why we're here. Then we can talk about the en banc decision or en banc order.
Absolutely. So during the campaign, President Trump was constantly saying he might invoke a wartime authority called the Alien Enemies Act and use it against a criminal organization, or alleged criminal gang members, right? And so this is a law that's only been used 3 times in our country's history: the War of 1812, World War I, and World War II. And that's not surprising because it's meant to be only used during war. We got wind in March that the president might invoke it against a regular criminal organization and unilaterally allege that Venezuelan men were part of this gang, put them under this wartime authority, and then send them to this notorious prison in El Salvador, essentially a gulag. It's called Sacat. We filed at 1 a.m. saying we believe this is going to happen, and we think it may happen tomorrow, Friday. This was Saturday. This was Friday night, early Saturday morning. The next morning, the judge issued an injunction saying our 5 plaintiffs that we named could not be removed. But he didn't say the whole class of people, which was dozens and dozens and dozens of men, couldn't be removed. We said to the judge, we think that the planes may go today, and we need a hearing to stop the removal of all these other men, what turned out to be 137 in our class. He scheduled an emergency Saturday night hearing at 5 p.m. He heard the arguments, and he said, crystal clear, I do not want these men removed to El Salvador until the court has had a chance to look at this case. That's what happened. Nonetheless, the government removed them to El Salvador and sent them to this prison, and then came back the next day or Monday and gave this what was essentially a completely contrived excuse, saying we didn't think your order stopped us from handing the men over to El Salvador. We thought your order only applied while the planes were still in U.S. airspace. Every judge has looked at that for the most part, or not every judge, but the overwhelming majority of judges have said that's a completely ridiculous interpretation. Obviously, Chief Judge Boasberg was intending to have the men not turned over to El Salvador and remain in the physical custody of the United States. He was very angry, to say the least, and he started criminal contempt proceedings. The government has tried to stop them at every turn. This is the second time they're in the Court of Appeals. Finally, the full court now is going to look at this to see whether his order was clear. The government says it wasn't. We hope that they'll say it was, and that he has the authority to investigate. Meanwhile, it's been a year of these men being first in this brutal Salvadoran prison for months and months, being abused and tortured, and then sent back to Venezuela. The government tried to say, well, no harm, no foul, because they're back in their home country. These are Venezuelan men. But of course, they fled Venezuela because they feared persecution in Venezuela. So they're hardly free now in Venezuela, free from harm. And so all of this has been happening over a year with the government trying to stop it. What's remarkable is the government has now said, we concede that we removed these men in violation of their constitutional due process rights because we didn't give them a chance to show they weren't even gang members to begin with. But the judge now, they're saying, cannot do anything because they're out of the country. Well, of course, the reason they're out of the country is because the government violated the order in the first place. So all this has been playing out now since March of 2025. We will have a hearing before the full court of DC Circuit on September 29th, and we're hoping the full court says Judge Boasberg's order was clear, the government was required to follow it, and he has the ability to investigate just who did what and who made the intentional decision, whether it was high-level Department of Justice people, whether it was cabinet officers, whether it was some combination.
And so I looked at the order from today. We have it up on Substack now. It includes, of course, the original panel, Katsas, Rayo, and was it Childs in the I know there were so many rules.
The original panel a while ago was Judge Rao, Judge Katsas, and Judge Pillard. And the latest panel was Judge Rao, Judge Walker, and Judge Childs dissenting.
Right. Got it. So, right. Exactly. And so they've now set up the briefing schedule throughout July and August, and September 29th. They're going to be holding it at 9:30, oral argument. We'll stream it live if we can, which I'm sure we can, on Legal AF YouTube channel. Now, before you got on, I don't know if you saw when I interviewed Senator Whitehouse, they're investigating whether there was collusion. This is, I can't, the words that I'm about to form, you and I are peers. I mean, have you ever been involved with a case where a judge at this level started criminal contempt proceedings against the United States of America?
No, and that's a great question, because I've been doing this work more than 3 decades. I've never seen anything like this. And truthfully, as you and I have talked about before, one of the major differences between Trump 1 and Trump 2 is the absolute disrespect they're showing to the courts. During Trump 1, there were a lot of draconian policies, and we were obviously fighting in court, including the family separation policy. But I never saw them come close to saying, we're just going to disrespect the courts, violate their orders. But this is just a whole new thing. And it's not a partisan thing. No prior administration, no prior Justice Department, whether it's a Democratic or Republican administration, has ever been doing things like this. This is just a blatant disregard for federal court orders. And I know that you cover a lot of important substantive topics, discrete policies that are being challenged in court. But in some ways, this transcends everything and is more important than everything, because if the executive branch and the Justice Department could just thumb their nose at court orders, then the whole system breaks down. Then nothing is possible. So there's really a lot at stake here.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect segue to my Judge Ludick clip in a moment, and the 174 judges that were involved here as friends of the court to encourage the en banc. Well, I mean, isn't this a natural byproduct of Donald Trump's personal criminal defense team and what they learned in those cases where they were abusive to the various judges on behalf of citizen Trump when he was, Todd Blanche and Emil Bovee and the rest? This is what they learned, that you can attack judges and their family and not pay too much of a repercussion. So the question is, I'm reading the order, and it says, upon consideration of the petition for rehearing en banc, which is obviously coming from your group, you, and the response, the unopposed motion for invitation to participate as amici curiae by 174 former judges in support of the petition, they then order it. So they got it, and they have cited it in their order as something that they found to be compelling. And I've interviewed Michael Ludick last week. I have him on tomorrow with me about what he did getting the 35 judges together in Miami in front of Judge Williams to reopen the case there. Again, another case about the power of a judge, inherent power to investigate fraud on the court or other abuse within the justice system, and what the power is. And that there's 200 or so federal judges and state judges that Judge Ludick has put together that kind of pick their moments, but really important ones, and get cited. I don't know if you caught my interview, but let me play you a clip and listen. This is how he thinks, how important the former judges are. I want to get your impression. Play the clip.
Never before in American history has a group of judges, retired or otherwise, ever come together, much less to speak publicly against what they are witnessing in the United States of America with respect to the corruption of the Constitution and the rule of law in this country. I could not be any prouder of this group of judges. 200 or 300 former federal and state judges have come together over the past year and a half, enthusiastic and willing to be heard collectively as that group on many of the issues that are facing America today. Extraordinarily unprecedented. And this is why they have done it. There is not a question in the world that the only voices that can be heard today above the din of the political, partisanship are judges, sitting active judges, and even retired judges. They are the only people in this country, Michael, who can save America today. And these judges, both active and retired, are prepared to honor their oaths in trying to save America.
Well, that sound you hear is a collective sigh of relief from our audience. Yeah, we felt better after hearing that. What impact do you think that amicus brief has had on the panel?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that all these former judges and in a nonpartisan, bipartisan way have come out is so critical, because it's taking a lot of courage for the sitting judges, given how the administration is acting. And just, a couple of things. One is Chief Judge Boasberg was sort of the first to come out and say, look, this is unacceptable, violating court orders. And it took a lot of courage. And as you know, the administration really went after him, from the president calling for his impeachment to online attacks. And so he has been very courageous, and he has not let them deter him, and he has stuck with it. And what I think you see is courage begetting more courage, because other judges now, Republican or democratically appointed, have come out and said the same thing, and that their orders are being violated. So I think the fact that hopefully we prevail in this en banc and the DC Circuit has Judge Boasberg's back will be important, not only in our case, but will send an important signal throughout the country that the appellate courts are going to have the district courts back. And just one other thing about the Amici, I mean, he has done an incredible job rallying all these judges, but I also want to put in a plug for his co-author, former Judge Nancy Gertner, from the District Court of Massachusetts, who has been integrally involved in this as well. And the two of them have been out there rallying all these other judges, and that to have their support has been absolutely essential for them to come up, because that, as he said, that is so rare for former judges to be coming out like this. But we're in a whole new world. All the other types of ways you would look at things like this are just out the window now. We're talking about the administration, and the administration deliberately violating orders where people's lives are at stake. And remarkably, one of the things they're saying in this case is, well, Judge Boasberg should just cool it and send the case to us, and we'll investigate our own people. Well, of course, they're not going to do that. They're bury it in 2 seconds. And so, that's one of the messages I think these judges.
Right. I forgot. Make a criminal referral to the Department of Justice, and we'll take a look at ourselves. You can trust us, right?
Right. Exactly.
Well, I know you're proud of your team and of the hard work that went into this. As soon as I saw it, I thought of you. I said, I gotta talk to Lee.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. And I'm so glad that you're here. Let's end it this way. I know I want to be judicious with your time. I'm really glad that you're here to brief the audience. We never like to, this is an up moment, so I don't want to end on anything else but an up moment. What can our audience do to support your work, what you do? How important is it that we have your back when you go into a courtroom?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, I appreciate you constantly shining a light on these issues. But I think people should never diminish how important it is for the public to speak out. I think every civil rights lawyer will tell you there's only so much that can be accomplished in the courts. It needs to be supported by a full public outcry, signing petitions, rallying, going to protest. It has to be sort of everyone all in. It can't just be in the courts. So I encourage people, if they're seeing stuff going on and they believe in the rule of law, regardless of what they may think about particular issues, to speak out and let this administration know that the rule of law is important to people and it's a bedrock of this country, and you're supporting these judges trying to enforce the rule of law. No one's saying that every judge's opinion has to be liked by the administration, and they certainly have a right to appeal. But as you started the program saying, rather than just saying we think this order is wrong and we think we can turn people over to El Salvador, so we're going to appeal it, but we'll comply with the court's order. They just said, we're not going to comply and turn the men over to El Salvador. That is such a fundamental disrespect for the way our system is set up. So everyone needs to speak out, and we very much appreciate you continuing to shine a light on this issue.
Absolutely. League Alert, defending our democracy along with the American Civil Liberties Union. We got your back because you've got ours. Thanks for joining us here on the intersection on the Midas Touch Network tonight.
Thanks, Michael.
You're welcome, Lee. And we are back. That's one of the things we try to do on Midas and on Legal AF. We have a good a group of newsmakers and the trial lawyers and just a little bit, pull the curtain back a little bit. When I see a case filed that's, I think, very interesting and important, and I want to curate it and bring it to you, I check who the lawyers are. At this point, we know who the lawyers are, and we'll immediately, I'll do it personally, reach out to them, ask them to come on, 100 out of 100 times, they want to talk to our audience. They want to be on Midas and on Legal AF, and they say yes. There's a new Freedom of Information Act request or lawsuit filed by American Oversight, seeking everything about Todd Blanche and Epstein and Judge Cannon, like every communication with Todd Blanche to or from that mentions Epstein in any version of it, Judge Cannon, Mar-a-Lago, Jack Smith, the volume 1, volume 2, whatever, has now been front and center in a brand new lawsuit. As soon as I saw that lawsuit filed, which is perfect timing for the confirmation hearing, middle of July, I dashed off an email to the lawyer. And I said, Ben, another Ben, I'd love to have you on. And we're working on getting them on to talk about that case in real time. Democracy Forward, Sky Perryman, 100 cases have been filed. Sky comes on all the time. Some people might think she's a contributor to Legal AF. I just have her on to talk about her cases from her perspective of the group that's bringing the cases. Same thing with the attorneys general. We've had dozens of attorneys general, Democratic attorneys general, talking about their 100 cases. I was reading an article when I was coming back from Canada with my family over the weekend. I was just catching up on old magazines and newspapers. I still read paper. And I think it was in New York Sunday Magazine about Senator Warnock, Reverend Senator Warnock from Georgia, about his view about the existential threat to democracy the Supreme Court poses. And I was like, I'd like our audience to hear from Senator Warnock. So that's going to happen in mid-July. Michael Luttig, I see he's part of the 174 judges. And I'm like, all right. And he filed a reply brief along with the other judges in Miami about Judge Williams' case, which is now waiting for her to take the next step about whether she's going to open up a full evidentiary hearing, which I believe she will, about whether there was fraud on the court perpetrated by Todd Blanche. See where this show is going? Todd Blanche and Donald Trump and his personal lawyers or not. And Luttig was part of that. So as soon as he filed, I emailed the judge and a friend of mine who's his local counsel, and they're coming on tomorrow to talk about both of these cases. See, this we do in order to bring you these perspectives of not, we started out as pure commentary. Legal AF, it was Ben and me, no guests. That was our little inside joke. We never had a guest. We still have never had a guest on Saturday. Is that true? Yeah, it's with Ben and me. We've never had a guest in 6 years. But, we got to bring to our audience the people. It's one thing for me with my 35 years of experience to comment about a constitutional issue, a presentation and an appeal, how a trial works, how grand juries or juries work or should work, how appellate courts work. It's another thing to get the perspective from somebody who's in the room in that particular case. I just interviewed, you'll see it tomorrow, as the #2 video on Legal AF YouTube channel, the head of the Criminal Reform Project at the American Civil Liberties Union. And he and I were talking about the 9-0 decision that he obtained with his team about gun rights at the United States Supreme Court. Fascinating. I have to be interested first, right? I mean, like, the first step is I gotta be into the guest. And I'm just, sometimes I'm on the edge of my chair for our audience as an ambassador for who I'm interviewing. And I think that's part of the fun of what we jokingly refer to as a TED Talk meets a law school class and has a baby, and that is intersection and legal AF and the rest. So let me touch now, as we wrap up here, on two quick cases here. Well, let me touch on the 101. So since we're talking about federal judges, 101, not Dalmatians, 101 former state judges filed a bar complaint, yay, against, Todd Blanche. And, all in time for his confirmation hearing. This one is in front of a regulator that I know and dear to my heart because they regulate my bar license. It's the Appellate Division First Department in New York. I got sworn into that ceremonial courtroom in 1992 with my late parents. And that kind of took me up there for a minute. And it's on Madison Avenue in Gramercy. And they regulate lawyers who practiced in Manhattan and lived or worked in Manhattan, like Todd Blanche. He's sort of a peer of mine. I think he's about 5 or 6 years younger than me. And the bar complaint is 67 pages long, single-spaced. And it's great. Shout out or comment to the communications directors and the prep teams for the senators on the Judiciary Committee. Get a hold of that 101 former judge complaint and use it as your guidepost to prepare your cross-examination book against Todd Blanche, because it maps it all out. From the Epstein file scandal to the weaponization slush fund to the targeting the enemies to the vindictive prosecutions and the rest. It was just chapter and verse, including, Todd using Todd Blanche's words against him in Senate hearings, in questionnaires that he's filled out, and the rest. Really a great job. This is different than the Ludig group, Gertner group. This is 101 judges through another group of ours that has been on with Legal AF before. So that's pending. Somebody asked, related to that, what's going on with the Epstein file cases? Katie Fang's got a huge hearing on the 30th of June. I'll get her on just after the hearing in front of Judge Emmett Sullivan about whether she's entitled to get the Epstein files on our behalf or not, whether she has standing, whether she has what's called informational injury sufficient to get the files. But this FOIA case filed by American Oversight, this companion case, is going to be a good way to whipsaw, Todd Blanche and the confirmation hearing. When I read the request for all documents and communications between involving Epstein and Blanche, I thought to myself, what is it with Donald Trump and attorney general nominees that have some connection to child sex trafficking? First it was Matt Gaetz, and then it's Todd Blanche. Well, the fish rots from the head, if you know what I mean. And on the American Oversight, this organization that filed the lawsuit about the Epstein files and the Judge Cannon references in the world of Todd Blanche, they also helped bring down Matt Gaetz because they did a similar request for everything about his ethics investigation about whether he participated in a child sex trafficking ring. See, people forget, but I don't, that this is, Todd Blanche has been the bridesmaid 3 times. 3 times. That shows you how desperate he is to do anything to get the top job. And he's shown he will do anything to get the top job. There's nothing beneath him. When they came out of the transition team for Trump about the presidency, they let leak an organizational chart that had, sit down for this one if you don't remember, Aileen Cannon, a judge, while Mar-a-Lago was still going on as the attorney general. That was leaked through, we think, Boris Epstein. That's been the reporting. And they never denied it. You know, it was a leak that never got denied. And it said Aileen Cannon, Attorney General, Todd Blanche, Deputy, and then his deputy, Emil Bovee. Then when they came out, I guess she didn't want the job at the time. I think she wants something bigger, higher, if you know what I mean. And they went to Matt Gaetz, passed over Todd Blanche again to go after a accused child sex trafficker, and that didn't even get to the nomination. That nomination didn't even get to the confirmation hearing. That got yanked, and so Todd Blanche is probably thinking, "Now's my chance. Here it is," you know. And then it's Pam Bondi. Only when Pam Bondi completely craters does Donald Trump, after Blanche shows a willingness to do anything to get the job, does he get the nod. But look what he had to do. Look what further sacrifice of his professional ethics. There was nothing left of them. He had to do. Indict James Comey over seashells. I'll do it. Go after the leading anti-hate group in America, the Southern Poverty Law Center. I'll do it. Set up a slush fund using an illegal lawsuit and settlement. I'll do it. Change the settlement the next day to give my family complete immunity and a super pardon. I'll do it. Go after my political enemies under a grand conspiracy, including Barack Obama and John O'Brennan and everybody in the intelligence community. I'll do it. Allow your department, because these U.S. attorneys all work under Todd Blanche, to commit grand jury misconduct, lie to federal judges, submit false evidence, submit false testimony, lie, cheat, and steal to get indictments, violate the Constitution to get indictments. I'll do it. Where do I sign? Do you see why he's going to have a hard time during the confirmation hearing? Currently, it's scheduled for 1 day, but with public outcry, it can end up being extended. That's where you come in. Public outcry. We'll show it live. They're planning on the 15th of July for Todd Blanche testimony, and then the 16th of July for other people to testify, I guess, against Todd Blanche. I can think of a number of people. I'll volunteer. But that's what we've been talking about with the common denominator here. Federal judges and Todd Blanche, I guess. Judge Suknanen, I said at the top of the show, issued I'll do a bigger debriefing about Judge Suknanen's blocking of the voter data, Social Security database thing being used to deny people the right to vote over her dead body. She's now blocked that. And then I want to talk, as I end the show, on this NAACP case, which I covered. I was one of the few outlets that actually covered the filing by the environmental equity unit of the NAACP. And I had the lead lawyer there, Abray Connor, join me. And a couple of months ago, we were just talking about how data centers run by people like Elon Musk are being allowed to pollute in Black and brown neighborhoods, because that's where they're putting them. They're not putting them up on the Upper East Side next to Howard Lutnick. They're not moving into the old Epstein mansion with the gas turbines and pumping, effluent into the water and contaminant into the air. Now, are they? No, they're putting it in places that they hope have no political muscle to stop them. So you got 58 gas turbines without a clean air permit, spewing, belching, acrid smoke and chemical list that when Abray went over it with me, it made my heart stop for a moment, into primarily Black neighborhoods nearby. And I thought that was going to be the story, right? But no, because of the United States' fight with Anthropic and OpenAI, who has the ethics. Yes, AI and ethics are supposed to go together. The ethical use of AI. And they say, we don't want our AI being used to sight bombs and to do bombing hits and missile strikes in the Iran war, any war. And so they became, a pariah, persona non grata around the the Pentagon. So they found a willing suitor. Enter Grok and Elon Musk. And it's all part of this SpaceX that just became $1 trillion company overnight. And in there, they had to file something, a motion to intervene on behalf of the U.S., because the case was NAACP and some other local plaintiffs against Elon Musk's AI companies. And enter stage right, stage left, whatever, Trump administration, motion to intervene. And an affidavit, which I pored over, filed by the head of AI for the Pentagon, who said, as you would expect, national security is at risk. We need to have clean air completely polluted by, this is my paraphrase, by these turbine engines, because we need the AI. And the Grok Gov model is being used and has been used successfully in Operation Epic Fury to hit 2,000 sites in 2,000 places in 96 hours. We couldn't have done it without the AI of Grok that's coming out of this plant called Colossus. Except part of that was obviously the use of AI to hit civilian targets, intentionally or otherwise, including the all-girls school, elementary school, with 157 people dead, 100 of them young girls, who disappeared overnight. Say what you want about the Iranian regime, but who's really in favor of wiping off the face of this earth 100 little girls using Grok? And they're bragging about it in the filing. It is a masterpiece of never before in the history of the civilian application. I'm like, are you effing kidding me? You just killed 100 girls. And you're bragging about the use of Grok? And in the beginning, Anthropic is probably breathing a sigh of relief because people were assuming it was them, that it was their AI. And no, it's Grok's AI. And I'm going to have Bray Connor from the NAACP back on with me on Friday. You'll see it on Saturday for another exclusive interview about, what did you think when they intervened and basically said they blew up a little girls' school using the AI? So now you not only have environmental equity issues, which are important, right? Not in my backyard eventually becomes place the nuclear power plant or the dirty plant in the backyard of Black and brown people. That's what NIMBY, not in my backyard, really means. I think you're going to be fascinated by Bray O'Connor when she joins me as a person, as a lawyer, a politician, and as a representative of the NAACP. I'm working hard to do more work here on Legal AF and on Midas Touch with the NAACP, as people know. So listen, I'm glad everybody's here. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty that people put up with, which I appreciate. We ran a little late as a result, but so many different ways to support what we do on the intersection. Audio downloads. We need more audio downloads. So go over to wherever you get the intersection podcast audio version. Even if you're a YouTube person like I am, go over to the audio version and just download it. That's all you got to do. And that helps the intersection. We won the Webby because of you, but now we really need the audio download. So that's one. Two, this is built on infrastructure. We stand on the shoulders of all things Midas and Legal AF. So if you don't know about Legal AF, that's what I do during the day. That's where I curate, and I'm the executive producer of all things on Legal AF, the YouTube channel. And become just hit the subscribe and the reminder. It's like a bell. And every time we post a video, which is like every hour, 12 fresh videos a day, you'll know about it. And a lot of things I can only sort of touch on or weave here. I give you a full drill down on an 8 to 10 minute video over, and along with other contributors. We got the ACLU over there with us, Democracy Forward, Court Accountability Action. We've got the Court of History, which is our resident historians, Sidney Blumenthal and Sean Willens, Dina Dahl, Lisa Graves, Alex Aronson. Civil Action has a whole great playlist there as well. Dave Arenberg, Florida Lawman, and Melba Pearson. We've got an amazing eclectic group of voices. Got the Pragmatic Optimists, Tiara Mack, who's a sitting senator in the state house of Rhode Island, and Rachel Cohen, an activist lawyer, which I think you'll enjoy as well. Come over to Legal AF, the YouTube channel, and then Legal AF Substack, whole nother cat. There I can do live reporting, live updating. We do live videos once or twice a day. We post all the filings and opinions, and become a member. It's free. If you want to become a paid member, put some gas in the tank here. That's great too. And over on Substack. And then we got our sponsors. We had a couple here tonight, which I appreciated all of them. But all of this, as Lee learned from the ACLU, I'll leave it this way, said, without public participation in this contact and sport, which is our participatory democracy, this is nothing, right? What I do would be so unimportant if I didn't reach the audience and the fellowship and the community that we built on Legal AF and Midas Touch's platform. It wouldn't mean anything. I mean, I'm not willing to do this. I wouldn't have left, sort of my other job, my 35-year career, to do this on a full-time basis, just to get 20 views, 40 views. It's not vanity. It's making a difference on our end in order for you to be able to make a difference on yours, right? We want to give you the information. We want to give you the straight scoop. We want to drill down on the stories that are being ignored by mainstream and corporate media so that you have at your fingertips the knowledge and understanding that you need to have the debate in the public square, in the marketplace of ideas, around your kitchen table, around your social media, in the streets, wherever it is. That's why we do. That's why we get up every day and do what we do. And you do too. Now, we try to do it in an informative and entertaining way, right? It's not C-SPAN. God help us. That serves an important focus as well. And all of that. I don't know what's going on with the election tonight. I really haven't been updated on that. I've been a little bit long-winded on everything else. How are we doing on the election? What's going on, team? Brad Lander wins Democratic nomination in the 10th Congressional District, okay, in New York. That's a big win for Mr. Lander. We know him well. Somebody asked, where's Kash Patel been? I mean, the less we see of him, I think the better. Don't you think? I mean, and the like. But I'll do a full report in the morning about the election results and what it really means on some version of Legal AF. Thanks for being here, everybody. Thanks for contributing your time. Thanks for being generous of spirit and time and memberships and sponsorships and the rest of it. So until tomorrow night, let's give you my programming rundown. Tomorrow night, midweek edition of Legal AF with Karen Freeman, Nick Nifolo, and me. Saturday, same thing, Legal AF, this time with Ben Mycelis and me. And we've got a new show, a new version of Legal AF. We call it Monday Night Live over on the Legal AF YouTube channel. Monday nights, 5 p.m. Eastern time, hosted by Dina Dahl and Lisa Graves. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Dina and I do a show called Unprecedented about the United States Supreme Court. It's Saturday mornings on Legal AF YouTube channel. You're not going to want to miss it this Saturday. We got about half a dozen Supreme Court cases to talk about as we wait for the last batch of 14 major Supreme Court cases over the next week or 10 days. And but again, thank you for being here. Shout out to the Midas Mighty, the Legal AFers, and the intersectionists. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.